Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to be looking into fractions, and our session intent today is converting fractions to decimals and percentages, expressing and simplifying fractions, adding and subtracting fractions, and converting improper and mixed numbers. So the first thing that we are going to look at today is converting fractions, decimals, and percentage to each other. So when we are converting from decimals to percentages, we multiply the decimal by 100. So we move the decimal point 2 places to the right, and that gives us our percentage. Now, another way of looking at it, to make it nice and easy for yourself, the number after the decimal point is your percentage. So notice we've got 0.62. Those two figures, and then going to be 62%. And that's exactly the same when we do it in reverse. So percentages to decimals, this time we divide by 100, or you put the number after the decimal point. Then we have decimals to fractions. So what we do here is we put our decimal over 100, so as a fraction, number at the top, number at the bottom. We put 42 over 100, so our decimal over 100, and then we simplify. And what that means, it means to divide it down until it cannot be divided anymore. And we're going to come into that a little bit more later. Until it cannot be divided anymore. So for example here, 42, if we half both numbers, we're left with 21 over 50, and then we can't do any more with that. And then that's exactly the same as percentages to fractions. So you put the percentage over 100 and then simplify. So say we had 15%, you would put it over 100, you would then simplify it, you could divide both by 5, and then you're left with 3 over 20. So decimals to percentages, percentages to decimals, put the number before the percentage, percentages to decimals, put it after the decimal point, decimals to fractions and percentages to fractions, you put it over 100 and then simplify. So let's have a look at these three. We've got 0.56, which is a decimal to a fraction. So we've got to put our decimal over 100. So we're going to go 56 over 100. Can we half both numbers? So always start with can you divide by 2, and we can. So divide by 2. Now, if you cannot do a division in your head, we need to put the division into bus stop. So for example, here, we're going to do 2 into 56. How many 2's are in 5? 2, 4, so it'd be 2 with 1 left over. How many 2's in 16? And it would be 8. So it'd be 28 over half of 100 is 50, and then we can half again. So half of 28 is 14, and half of 50 is 25, and we have got our fraction. Then our next one, 65% is a decimal. So as before, we just put it after the 0 point. So our answer will be 0.65. So we put it after the decimal point. And then here, 0.16 as a percentage is going to be 16%. So we put this number before the percentage symbol. And that is how we do our conversions. Okay. Sometimes you might be asked to calculate fractions to decimals and percentages with or without a calculator. So if we have it with a calculator, you divide the top by the bottom to get your decimal. So we do 3/4 as a decimal. So we say 3 divided by 4. So you always do your second number is your last number here, what you're dividing by. So you split in 3 into 4 pieces, which gives you 0.75. And then if we want to get that to a percentage, we then multiply the decimal by 100 to get our percentage. Now, sometimes you might be asked to do this without a calculator. So if this bottom number cannot be made into 100, you use the calculator method, but you'll need to use bus stop to do the division. So here we're going to do 2/5 as a decimal. So we're going to do 2 divided by 5, But now we need to put it into bus stop. So here we've got 5 into 2.00. We have to write it like this. So we have to write the first bit as a decimal. 5 into 2 doesn't go, so we put 0 and point. We carry the 2 over, so 5's into 2, 5's into 20, 5, 10, 15, 20 is 4, and then 0. So our decimal is 0.40. And then if we wanted to get it to a percentage, we times it by 100, so then it would be 40%. Now, there is an alternative way as well to turn a fraction to a percentage. So when the bottom can be made into 100, you times the bottom by a number to make 100 and times the top number by the same amount. Then your top number is the percentage. So step 1, times the bottom number by a number to make it 100. So we do 5 times 20 equals 100. Step 2 is to times the top number by the same amount. So 3 times 20 is 60. And then your top number is your percentage. So it'd be 60%. Okay, let's have a go at some of those. So 2/5 as a decimal in the percentage. Right, we've already done that. So let's change that to 4/5. Okay. So 5 goes on our outside and 4 goes on the inside. How many 5's into 4? It doesn't go. How many 5's in 40? 8. How many 5's in 0? It's 8, so our decimal is 0.8. We then times that by 100 and we're left with 80%. Okay, let's try that again. 3/15 is a decimal and a percentage, so 15 goes on our outside and 3 goes on our inside. Can 15 go into 3? No. So we carry the 3 over. How many 15's into 30? 2. How many 15's into 0? 0. So our decimal is 0.2. We then times by 100 and we're left with 20%. So 4/5 as a decimal is 0.8 and as a percentage it's 80%. 3/15 as a decimal is 0.2 or 20%. Then we've got our ones here where we actually can make that bottom number into 100. So we've got 12 over 50. So for example, 12 over 50, how are we going to make it into 100? So it's always good to write it out with equals over 100. How do you get from 50 to 100? So we times by 2. So we've got to do the same to 12. What's double 12? 24. So then that becomes 24%. And then our second one, 6/25. So we've got 6/25 equals over 100. How do we get from 25 to 100? So 25, 50, 75, 100, we times by 4, and then we do the same to 6, which turns out again is 24. So our percentage again is 24%. And that is how we convert between fractions, decimals, and percentages. So our next topic for fractions today is expressing and simplifying fractions. So you may be asked to express one number as a fraction of another. For example, write 5 days as a fraction of 20. So here you are saying there are 5 days out of 20, so the fraction would be 5 over 20. Your total always goes at the bottom, and it's always what we call your denominator. Then you maybe need to simplify or express in its lowest term. So we divide both numbers until they can't be divided anymore. So 5 into 20. What times table are both 5 and 20 in? They are both in the 5 times table, so we can divide by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 20 divided by 5 is 4. So 5/20 is equal to 1/4 because it's expressed it in its lowest term. So with simplifying, it comes with practice and your times table knowledge, but there are some rules to remember. and some ways that you can find it much easier for yourself to simplify fractions. So for example, if both numbers are even, so for example, they end in a 2, a 4, a 6, 8, you can divide by 2, 4, 6, etc. If both end in 1, 0, you can divide by 10. So for example, 20 over 30, you would knock off 2 zeros and you'd be left with 2/3. If they both end in 2 zeros, you can divide by 100. So 1,500 over 6,000. You could then knock it off. So then it becomes 15 over 60. Then, if both numbers are odd, you can divide. So for example, they end in a 3, they end in a 5, they end in a 7, they end in 9. You can try by dividing by 3, 7, 9, etc. If they end in a 5 and a 0, so let's use this example here, 15 over 60, you can divide both by 5. So 15 divided by 5 is 3, and then 60 divided by 5 is 12. So our answer is 3 over 12. Then we've got this plays into this little rule here. So if the numbers are odd and even, so odd, even, you follow the same rule as 2. So 3 over 12, we can divide by 3, 7 or 9. Well, we can divide by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. So all our rules for simplifying make it much easier for you to simplify fractions. So let's have a go at these. So there are 30 students in a class. 20 have brown hair. What fraction of the class have brown hair? Give your answer in the simplest form. So how many are we looking for in a question? We're looking for those that have brown hair, which is 20. We put that over our total, which is 30, and our fraction starts as 20 over 30. Now we need to simplify. So because of our rule, both end in a 0, we can divide by 10. So we are left with 2 over 3 as our answer. Okay, question 2. A bag contained red and white sweets. There are 12 red sweets and 8 white sweets. What fraction of the sweets are white? So we're looking for how many sweets are white, which is 8, and then we are looking for our total. Now our total is not given in the question, but if we do 12 add 8, that's going to give us our total. So 20 is our total. So it's going to be 8 over 20. Now, here, both numbers are even, so we can divide by 2. So 8 divided by 2, or half, is 4. Half of 20 is 10. Now, can we get that any further? Can we half them again? Yes, we can. So 4 divided by 2, or half, is 2. 10 divided by 2, or half, is 5. So our answer is 2/5. And then our final one. Over one day, Rebecca spends 6 hours sleeping. What fraction of the day is she awake? So we know she's 6 hours sleeping. However, the question's asking us for how long she is awake. So we know there's 24 hours in one day. If she is asleep for 6, how are we going to work out how much she is awake for? Take that 24. We take away the 6 she's awake, and that works out how much she's sleeping for. So 24 take away 6 is 18, and that equals how much she's sleeping for. So now that's our top number. Our numerator is 18. 24, the total, is our denominator. So we start with 18 over 24. Now we can divide both numbers by 2 because they're both even. They end in an 8 or a 4. So our answer is 9 over 12. Now here we are left with an odd and an even. So we can divide by 3. So 9 divided by 3 is 3, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. So our answer is 3/4. It's all about following those rules to help you express them and get them down to the lowest form. If you cannot do a division, you need to try and do it in bus stop and get into that habit. Don't panic, just put it into bus stop. Okay, our next topic is what we call fractions of amounts. So when calculating a fraction of an amount, you divide by the denominator, which is the bottom number, and then times your answer by the numerator, which is the top. So I want you to remember, divide by the bottom times by the top. So let's have a go at these first four. So we've got 1/3 of £21. So step one, we do 21, divide by the bottom, which is 3, and we are left with 9. And then we take that 9 and we times it by the top, which is 1, and we're left with £9. Sorry, it's not 9, it's 7. See, even I make mistakes. 21 divided by 3 is 7. 7 times 1 is 7. Okay, then we've got B, 3/4 of 100. So we're going to do step 1, 100 divided by 4, which is 25 kilograms. And then we're going to do step 2, we're going to do 25 times by our top, which is 3, and that is 75 kilograms. So now I want you to spend the next couple of minutes just working on C and D. Spend some time working on C and D. Remember, divide by the bottom times by the top. Okay, let's have a look at these answers. So 2/3 of 27. So step 1, 27 divided by our bottom, which is 3, which then gives us 9. And then step 2, 9 times 2, which is 18 centimetres. So well done if you got 18. Okay, our last one that we're going to have a look at. Number 1, we're going to do 32 divided by our bottom, which is 8. So we're left with 4 seconds. And then step 2, we're going to do 4 times by our top, which is 7, and we're left with 28 seconds. So well done. That is how we calculate fractions of amounts. So now we're going to look at them as if we've got a problem question. So a man earns £420 a week. He spends 1/5 of this on rent and 1/3 of what is left on food. How much does he spend on food? So our first step, step 1, is we have to do 1/5 of £420. Now, we know we have to do 420 divided by 5. We've got an answer, and then we times that answer by 1. So to do that 420 divided by 5, I would put it into bus stop. So 5 on the outside, 420. How many 5s into 4? We can't do, so we carry the 4. How many 5s into 42? So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 is 8, with 2 left over. How many 5s into 20? And we're left with 4. So our answer is £84. So 484 times by 1, and we're left with 84. Okay, then our step 2, it says, and 1/3 of what is left. So how do we work out what is left? So we need to do 420, take away 84, and we're going to put it in what we call column method. So 0 take away 4 we can't do, so we need to borrow. 10 take away 4 is 6. 1 take away 8 we can't do, so we need to borrow from here. 11 take away 8, which is 3, and 3 take away nothing is 3. So 336 is left. And then step 3, work out how much is on what is left is on food. So it's 1/3 of 336. So yet again, we're going to do 336 divided by 3, and that's going to give us an answer. And then we're going to do that answer multiplied by the top. So here, again, we're going to put it into bus stop. So 3 to 3, 3, 6. How many 3's into 3? 1. 3's into 3, 1. How many 3's into 6? 2. So our answer is 112. 112 times by 1, and 112 is spent on food. The most common mistake people tend to make on this question is doing 1/3 of 420. That is not what this question is asking. It's asking after he spent his 1/5 on rent, what is left, 1/3 is then being spent of what is left, okay? Okay, our last two topics that we're going to do today. It's a bit of an upskill topic. It does tend to come up at level 1 occasionally, but it's good to know how to do this. So, when you are adding or subtracting fractions, what's really important to remember is you must make the denominators the same. And then I want you to remember this phrase, whatever you do to the bottom, you must do to the top. So here, we've got 1/2 add 1/4. Now, if you can turn one number to the other, you keep the larger fraction. So if you can turn one bottom into the other, you keep the larger fraction. Now we can turn 2's into 4's by timesing by 2. So our new denominator, so our new bottom, is going to be 4's. Now we keep this one. And we're just going to change this. And what you say, how do you get from your old bottom to the new? So what do you multiply 2 by to get 4? And you times by 2. And then you do the same to 1. Or do the same to the top. So we do 1 times 2, which is 2. So 1 times 2, which is 2. So then we only add the top. And you keep the bottom the same. So you only add or take away the top, and you keep your bottom the same. So 2 add 1 is 3, 4 and 4. So it'd be 3/4. Okay, let's practice some of them. It comes with a lot of practice adding and subtracting fractions. So we've got 3/7 add 2/14. So can we turn 7 into 14s? Can you multiply 7 by anything to get 14? And you can. So we're going to keep 14 as our bottom. Keep the larger fraction, so we're going to keep this. What do we times 7 by to get 14? And you times it by 2, and then you do the same to 3. So 3 times 2 is 6. We add 6 and 2 is 8, and 14. And then what we like to do is then simplify. So then it can be divided by 2, and that becomes 4/7. Okay, let's try one more. I'll change my colour pen so it's super obvious we're doing the next one. Okay, so we've got 4/5, take away 1/10. Can we turn 5 into 10? Yes, so our new bottoms are going to be 10s. We keep the 1/10. Then, how do you get from 5 to 10? What do you multiply by 5 to get 10? You times by 2. 4 times by 2 is then 8. No, this time it is a takeaway. So 8 take away 1 would be 7 over 10. That is how we add and subtract fractions when what we call the denominators are like. So one can be turned into the other. Now, as a real challenge for today, we are going to look at what we call adding and subtracting with unlike denominators. So when we have fractions with different bottoms, where one cannot be turned into the other, we multiply the denominators together to get our new denominator. So for example, here we would do 5 times 3, which gives us a new denominator of 15. Then, as before, you say, how do you get from your old bottom to the new? So how do we get from 5 to 15? We times by 3. And we do the same to 3. So that becomes 9. And how do we get from 3 to 15? We times by 5. So we do the same to 2. And that becomes 10. And we are left with what is called an improper fraction. So we have 19 over 15, what's called an improper fraction, and we're going to come on to these very, very shortly. And how we convert, so what's called an improper fraction. But what we're just going to do, we're just going to have a go at one of those. So remember, when you cannot turn one to the other, we multiply our bottoms together. And we're just going to have a go at the first one. So we've got 2/5 add 1/4. So 2/5 add 1/4. So we times together. What's our new bottom? 5 times 4 is 20. Fantastic. Then we say, how do we get from our old bottom to our new? So how do you get from 5 to 20? It helps when you're repeating the sentence over and over. So how do you get from 5 to 20? You times by 4, and then you do the same to 2. So 2 times 4 leaves you with 8. Then you move to the second fraction. How do we get from 4 to 20? We times by 5. So we do 1 times 5, which is 5, and we add together, and we've got 13 over 20. Okay, what I would like you to do, I want you to try and have a go at this one independently. I'll have a go at 3/4 add 2/3. Okay, let's have a look. So we've got 3/4 add 2/3. So remember, we have to multiply our bottoms together. So we did 4 times 3, and what did we get? 12. Fantastic. Okay, then we've got to say our phrase. How do we get from our old bottom to our new? So how do we get from 4 to 12? Times it by 3, and then we do the same to 3, which gives us 9. Then how do we get from 3 to 12? We times by 4, and we do the same to 4 to 2. So 2 times 4 is then 8. So then 9 add 8 is then going to leave us with 17 over 12, which is now known, as we said before, as our improper fraction. And we are now going to come on to those fractions, because at maths we don't really like improper fractions. I'm going to talk to you why. So an improper fraction is a fraction that has a larger number on top. In maths, we don't like these. We like to have what we call a proper fraction, so where the number is at the top is smaller than the number at the bottom. So a mixed number has a whole number and a fraction. So that's your whole number, and that is your fraction. We really, really want to convert between these two. So it's good to convert improper to mixed number. Hence why they're called improper. So now we're going to have a look at how we do so. So if a fraction has a larger number at the top, we need to see how many of the bottom number fit into it and use the remaining as a fraction. So for example, here we've got 10 over 3. So obviously the top number is bigger than the bottom. So what we do is we say how many of the bottom can fit into the top. So how many 3s are in 10? So imagine you were doing it in bus stop. How many 3s are in 10? So you've got 3, 6, 9. So it'd be 3 and then 1 is left over. So we'd say 3 remainder 1. You keep the bottom number the same, which is 3, and you write it as 3 wholes and 1 over 3. So your remainder is over your original bottom. So let's have a go at some of these. So we've got 9 over 2. So remember we say how many 2's into 9, and the remainder is over the original bottom. So how many 2's into 9 is 4. There's 1 left over from 8 till 9, so we put the remainder 1 over our original, and we're left with 4.5. Okay, let's try that again. So 15 over 4. How many 4's into 15? So 4, 8, 12, 16. So it'd be 3. How many's left over from 12 to 15 is 3. So 3 is our remainder over our original bottom 4. Just do both of those so you can see. So 4 is your remainder and 2 is your original bottom. And then our last one, how many 3's into 45? So we can actually put this into bus stop. So how many 3's into 45? How many 3's into 4 is 1 with 1 left over. 3 into, and our answer is just 15. We have no remainder. It'd be 15 wholes. Okay, now let's do it the opposite way. So now let's look at changing a mixed number to an improper fraction, because you might be asked to do this in your exam. So say we've got 2 3/4. So we do our whole number multiplied by our bottom number, and then we add the top. So for example, we do 2, so actually I'll write this nice and big for you. 2 times 4, which is 8, then 8 add 3, which is 11, and then you keep the bottom number the same, so it becomes 11 over 4. Let me just do that slightly away from the text so you can see it properly. So we do the whole times the bottom. That'd be 2 times 4, which equals 8. Add top. Then we do 8 add 3, which is 11. You keep the bottom number the same, which is 4. It becomes 11 over 4. So let's have a look at these. So we've got 4 and 1/2. So we do 4 times 2, which is 8. 8 add our top, which is 1, so it'd be 9 over our thingy, so it would be 9 over 2. Okay, and then our last one that we're going to do today, so 2 and 7/8. So we do 2 times 8, which is 16. 16 add 7, which is 23. 23 over our bottom number, so 23 over 8. And that is how we convert from improper to mixed number fractions. So, our lesson today, we have covered converting fractions to decimals and percentages, expressing and simplifying fractions, adding and subtracting fractions, and converting improper and mixed number. So all it's left to do is complete the worksheet for today, and you are done with fractions.